Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you guys are doing very great. So let's continue with our enterprise network configuration. In our previous lab on this enterprise network, we configured link aggregation, MSTP, DHCP, VRRP, and OSPF. Now in this lab, we're going to configure firewall to enable the service from PC1 to be able to reach the server. Also, we are going to implement the WLAN for wireless access users. In our lab, we didn't have this AC, so we've implemented WLAN, we've increased the devices, we've brought AC and connected into our main network. VLAN 4 here will be the VLAN for the APs, for the management VLAN. Then VLAN 2 will be for the service VLAN. So we are going to add the DHCP to assign IP addresses for the APs. I mean for APs for the management. So we're going to enter our router. So on our router, we're going to tell the IP pool VLAN 4. Then on that, we are going to give it a network where VLAN 4 belongs. So 172.16.4.0 with a mask of 24. Then gateway list will be .254, so 172.168.4.172.4.254. Then we are going to exclude some addresses. So exclude address 172.16.4.100 to 172.168.4.253. We're going to quit. We are done with that because we already enabled the DHCP on the interface that connect to the switch. So interface gig 0/0/1. I want to display this to see if it's enabled with select global. So you can see here it is enabled. DHCP global has been enabled on that. Now we come to our switch here to configure the DHCP relay agent for VLAN 4. So create the sub VLAN interface for VLAN 4 interface VLAN 4 IP address. So the VLAN doesn't exist. We're going to create that VLAN. So every switch is supposed to have that VLAN. So VLAN 4, then enter interface VLAN 4. Give it IP address of 172.168.4.100/24. Tell DHCP to select relay. DHCP select relay. Then DHCP relay server here. Select AR1. Quit. After that, now we are going to configure the trunk to allow VLAN 4. So support group here, we're going to get a group number from gig 0/0/2 all the way to gig 0/0/3. We're going to give it port link type. Port link type here, it's going to be a trunk port. Then port trunk, allow pass VLAN 4. Because already we configured VLAN 2 and 3, we make sure you do the same to these other switches. So here we create VLAN 4, quit, and create the ports in a group. Port group here will going to be group gig 0/0/2 to gig 0/0/3. These one are just like creating the interfaces in a batch form. So tell it port link type is a trunk port. Port trunk, allow pass VLAN 4. Quit and come to the access switches. So now we are creating the VLAN for VLAN 4. Quit and now create the port in a group. Port group name here will be Group member will be gig 0/0/1 to gig 0/0/2. Now tell it port link type being a trunk port, then port trunk, allow pass VLAN 4. This VLAN 4 is the one that is going to be used to help the APs be able to acquire the DHCP IP addresses. Now create VLAN 4, quit and create the port group. Group member here will be gig 0/0/1 to gig 0/0/2. Port link type being a trunk port. Then tell it port trunk, allow pass VLAN 4. Since router 2 here will act as the backup for the DHCP on router number 1, we need also to configure the DHCP on that router. So we want to IP pool VLAN 4 is the name, network of 172.168.4.0 mask of 24. After that, we are going to use the gateway list of 172.168.4.254. We exclude some addresses, that is 172.168.4.100 to 172.168.4.253. After that, now we quit and configure the DHCP relay agent on this switch. So enter interface VLAN 4. IP address will be 172.168.4.101, mask of 24. Then tell it DHCP select relay, then DHCP to relay the server select, then the server name was AR1. So we are done with configuring the DHCP relay and also the DHCP server. Now we enter this interface gig 7 here. We are going to configure as a trunk port to allow VLAN 2 and 4 to pass towards the AC, to enable AC now to control the WLAN services. So quit interface gig 0/0/7, port link type here trunk port, and delete port trunk, allow pass VLAN 2 and 4, quit, and we are now on this our AC. Before we go to AC now, this interface that connect to our AP will act as an access port. So we're going to configure that first. So quit. Now enter interface Ethernet 0/0/3, port link type here access port. Then the access port is going to allow the default VLAN number 4. So port default VLAN here is VLAN number 4. VLAN 4. Then now we are now on AC, on AC1. UTM, give it the AC a name, will be AC1. Then we're going to create VLAN 2 and 4, VLAN batch 2, 4. Then interface VLAN if 2, IP address here will be 172.168.2.105/24. Then the IP address for VLAN if 4 that will act as our CAPWAP source will be IP address will be 172.168.4.254, the mask of 24. Quit and now enter the interface that connect to the switch. So interface gig 0/0/1 port link type trunk port, and then you tell it port trunk allow pass VLAN 2 and 4. After that, we are going now to stop this AP and copy its MAC address so that we'll be able to link it with the AC. Let's copy its MAC address, Control C. Now come and paste your MAC address here, Control V. And it is good to ensure that your MAC address is grouped into 4. After that, you copy that address, Control C, and now start your device. Now come to our AC. We're going to create the WLAN. So we're going to enter the WLAN. Then the group here, from our work here, we are told that the CAPWAP source is a VLAN 4, that is 172.16.4.254. AP group name here is a Calcom. Regulatory domain is a Calcom. Country code is CN, that is China. SSID will username net, then SSID name will be honeypot. Security is net. Password will be a cal at 123. So let's configure the CAPWAP source interface. We said we're going to use the source interface for VLAN 4. So CAPWAP source interface VLAN 4. So the AC and AP are on the same network, so this one must be very simpler. So after that, you are going to enter the WLAN and create the AP group. So AP group here, we said the group name here will be a Calcom. After that, quit and create the regulatory domain. Regulatory domain name here will be also a Calcom. Then country code is CN, that's China, the default one. Quit and bind the regulatory domain into the AP group. So we're going to bind that regulatory domain into the AP group. So we said regulatory profile, a Calcom. Say yes. After that, quit. And now we want to bind the AP to the CAPWAP source. So we're going to copy the MAC address here, Control C. So say AP authentication mode is MAC, then AP MAC here, we copy the MAC address. Can give it also a name, so AP name, let's use AP1. Then we bind it to the AP group, so we say AP group, it was a Calcom. Say yes. Let's see if it has found the AP. So display AP all. The state is still idle. Let's reset AP. So quit that view and say AP reset all. Say yes. Success count is 1, failure 0. So let's display again now AP. When display AP all, it is fault, meaning that it is trying to obtain IP address. So in a few minutes, the status will change to normal. Now after that, we are going now to configure the WLAN services. So SSID name here will be net. Make sure the SSID name is the same with the securities. Then SSID, the name that will appear in our network, we will use the honeypot. honeypot, then quit and create the security profile. Name here will be Nat. After that, security here we say WPA2. We use the WPA2. PSK passphrase here we'll use a curl shift at 1 2 3 as the practical as implemented. Then we use AES. Let's question. You can either use AES or AES TKIP or TKIP. So we are going to use AES. Quit and create now the verb profile. Verb profile name here we said verb1. On the verb1 we are going to bind the service VLAN. We said we are going to use service VLAN of 2. So service VLAN is VLAN ID of 2. Forwarding mode, use tunnel forwarding. Then we bind the SSID and security profile. SSID name was net. Then security was also net. After we bind those, quit. Let's display AP all to see if it has turned to normal state. Display AP all. It is now normal. It has obtained an IP address of 172.16.4.99 because we told it to exclude IP addresses from 100 to 253. So it will assign IP addresses from 99 going downwards towards 1. So the next AP will pick 98 going downwards. So after that, we enter the AP group. Name here was a calcom. Then we bind the verb to that. So verb profile was verb1, WLAN 1 here, then radio 0. You should see the first circle after that command. You see the circle, the first circle has come up. Then we configure for radio for channel, the next channel. So verb profile verb1, WLAN 1, radio 1. So the second circle is also up, and now we are going to try to connect that our PC into our network for it to able to obtain IP address. So let's start it. You can also bring your cell phone and connect it to our network. So you can see here it's already now it has found the Wi-Fi name, so that is the honeypot. You're going to connect into that channel 1. So use a calcom. Make sure you type your password correctly. Cal at 123. So obtaining an IP address. Let's connect the second cell phone, channel 2. Cal shift at 123. Still obtaining an IP address, so let's give it time. It is now connected, you see. Now let's see the IP address that it has obtained. So IP config. It has obtained an IP address of 172.16.2.97. And can it now get to our interface on router? The router is where the IP addresses are being sent, where the DHCP is. But now can it ping that interface of the router? Come to that and ping 10.0.0.1. Can't get to that. Now let's see the IP address that this other one is also connected. It has obtained. So IP config the return IP address of 172.16.2.196. So it's able to reach .1.2, but it can't reach .1. So packets are being lost because the interface goes on and goes up. The reason why we are not able to ping that interface is because now it keeps on going on and off. But suppose it becomes stable, we should be able now to reach where the router is, because it is what is assigning them IP addresses. Now that they are able to obtain an IP address, they should also be able to reach those interfaces IP addresses and be able to ping. You see, it's now able to ping. It's able to get to the router, but some packets obviously are being lost because the interface keeps on going on and off. So we are done with the WLAN. So let's just save our configuration. Say yes, and now also save it into our device. So guys, we are done with the WLAN configuration. Now what remains now the last part, that is now configuring the firewall. We want to configure firewall in such a way that PCs here can be able to ping the server. Also, the STS on the wireless network should be able to reach the server. Now, we will go and start our firewall. UTM. Now, we are now on our firewall. We need to configure our firewall in such a way that routes are also can also reach the routes from our router. So, display CU to see the IP addresses. If the IP addresses have been set on that firewall, can see gig 100 is have been given IP address. All the interfaces have been given IP addresses. What we're going to do first of all is now to configure the static routes towards the network where the PCs are, and also towards the network where we have got our ISP. So sysview. Now, I think I have set those routes, static routes, on my notepad here. So what I'm going to do is just copy. As you can see, we have got default routes towards where the ISP is, and also the networks towards where the PCs are with their gateway. So the gateways are 10.0.2.1 and 10.0.3.1 for both the PCs. So Control V, all those routes should be available on that our firewall. So after that, we are going now to configure the security policy and also the security zone. So we start with security zones. We're going to add the security zones, the interfaces. So interface, so firewall zone trust, then add interface, both interface gig 100 and gig 101 are on trust zone. So add interface gig 1/0/0. Also add interface gig 1/0/1. Quit and enter the untrust zone, the interface that connect to the ISP. So firewall zone, untrust. We want to add interface gig 1/0/3. Quit and enter the DMZ zone. So DMZ firewall zone, here will be DMZ. On the DMZ zone, we're going to add interface gig 102. So add interface gig 0/ interface gig 1/0/2. Quit. After configuring the firewall zone, the next thing I think is now configuring the security policy. First, we need to access the DMZ zone server through the intranet, but the server cannot actively access the trust zone, and only VLAN 2 access is allowed. So we need to configure our policy where the PCs on VLAN 2 should be able to access our server 1 here, but now we should not allow traffic from the server should not be allowed towards our intranet. Only the traffic from our intranet towards the server should be allowed. So we are first of all going to configure the traffic from our intranet to the server through VLAN number 2. So we create security policy. Then here rule name here will be trust to DMZ. Then source zone will be trust. Destination zone will be DMZ. Then we are going to configure the source address, that is for VLAN 2, that is 172.16.2.0, mask of 24. Then action, we are going to tell it to permit that interface, so action permit. Quit, and now we are going to enter interfaces of the firewall and allow ping service. So interface gig 0 slash interface gig 1/0/0 service manage enable, then tell it service manage ping permit, enter gig 101, also enable ping service permit the ping, and gig 102 enable ping permit, enter gig 103, also it should allow ping packets to pass through its interface. Quit. Now after we are done with the allowing the interfaces, now we are going to configure NAT. Now to configure NAT, so before we configure NAT, let's start these our devices and see now will we be able to reach the network where the server is. So let's check if the server already has an IP address, and also its gateway is the firewall. So as it starts now, let's go back to our firewall, and before we configure the NAT, we are going to configure the security policy from the trust to the untrust. So we want our IP on the intranet to be intranet to be hidden when we connect to our internet. So now security policy here, rule name here will be trust, untrust. Then source zone will be trust, destination zone untrust, action tell it to permit. After that quit and create the NAT policy. NAT policy, say it rule name here will be trust to untrust, trust to untrust. Then we tell it source zone trust, destination zone untrust, action is source NAT is the IP, and we quit. Then the final step on configuration now is you should be able now to configure our NAT server for the people on the intranet now on the ISP to now be able to access the server. So from our trust, we should now be able to access the DMZ zone. So quit and create a security policy. Security policy here, rule name here will be untrust to DMZ. So source zone will be untrust, destination zone will be DMZ. Action here is to permit. After that, quit and configure. We're now going to configure the NAT to be able now to map our internal address to the external address, that is the private to public. So this will be able to translate it from private to public so that it hides our internal IP. So tell it quit again. NAT here will be server The name we can give it server 1. Global address here will be 221.1.1.1. Inside address will be 10.4, that is where the server is, 10.0.4.4. Then it will no reverse. So we are done with the firewall. Let's save the configs. Can we now ping where the server is, that is 10.0.4.4. Destination unreachable. It still can't find that destination. So let's see on this router if the routes towards that firewalls are reachable. Come to this router here, display CU. I think I need to swap some devices so that at least the system doesn't hang like it is hanging right now. Let me stop these devices. On the AC side and try to run with the available devices. I want to see if that router has routes towards the firewall. So we should be able to configure static route towards the firewall. The next hop being .2, the interface on the firewall. So it has routes. It has a static route, this one. But now I guess it's because now the interfaces keep on going down and up. Now can we ping the interface of the firewall? Ping 10.0.2.1. Destination is unreachable. That is because of the interfaces being on and off. You see, they are red. Suppose now we have a powerful PC, you should now be able to ping that interfaces, because now the interfaces will be running. So also, because I'm recording at the same time I'm running these heavy devices, now see one of the routers is failing to start. Also, if you come to the switch here, the switch here also can't start because now the devices have become so heavy for my PC. So but now if you follow from what I have demonstrated, should now be able to ping your server, because now we've configured the security policy to allow traffic specifically from PCs on VLAN 2 to be able to visit the server, but the traffic should not come from the server towards our intranet. Also, we've configured the policy where we are supposed to allow traffic from the trust zone to the untrust, that is the ISP. So having configured that, the PC on our internet should be able to visit the ISP. It should ping the interface on the ISP successfully. And again, the ISP should be able to visit our server. So in case you want somebody from an external want to visit our servers, it will just go through the DMZ to access our server. That's why we use DMZ, so that you don't know where our internal network is. So you will just get the services from our server before you get to our internet. We should not configure our firewall to let in external users, that's the people on the internet, to be able to access our intranet, so as that secure our network from external attacks. So thank you guys for staying tuned today, and we are still here with more labs, so just stick around and you'll be able to learn a lot. So thank you, and let's meet in our next video.